All right, then, since we successfully created this UI design, now it's time to integrate the Firebase in our front end. So let's integrate the Firebase in the front end, then we move on to the back end. So now what we need to do is go to your Firebase project, which you created, and we have this Firebase config.js, right? So we need to configure this inside our application. So before that, we need to install the Firebase. Let's make sure whether we install the Firebase or not. So let's go to package.json and let's see, we haven't installed the Firebase. Okay, so what we need to do, let's go here and then let's go to the client over here and just say yarn add Firebase. Okay, enter. So that will install the necessary packages to configure the Firebase inside our application. So this will take like maximum 10 to 15 seconds. So let's wait until it's done. Let's go back here and let's see how to configure all these things. Like, okay, so this is the content but we need to copy. So now what we need to do is go back to your Firebase, sorry, your Visual Studio Code, and it's downloading. And here inside the source folder, we're gonna create a new folder called config. Right click, create a new folder called config. All right, so now the Firebase is installed successfully. Let's close this and let's minimize the animations, assets, components, and then let's expand the containers as well, and let's expand the config. Inside the config, I'm going to create a new file called firebase.config.js. So later, if you're going to config any other extra to your front end, you can put it inside the config folder. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to bring that line, copy this, and let it bring it inside. So let's paste it over here. All right, so we need to replace all these keys inside our environment folder to keep it securely. Okay, so what we need to do is to go here and let's import few packages first. Import from Firebase/app. So we need to get this initialization app, initialize app. So for that, what I'm going to do is get app, then get apps, then initialize app. These are the packages that we need, classes that we needed from the Firebase app. Then we need to get the Firebase storage as well. So import from Firebase/storage. So we're gonna get the storage option, get storage. Okay, so then what we need to do is like let's do one more time. Okay, so here now what we need to do is we need to create the application first. So let's create a const app is equals. So to create an app, what we need to do is first we need to get the list of apps. So we need to get the app information from the Firebase. If the app information is already there, then we don't need to create, or we don't need to initialize a new app again. So what happens if you're initializing app like this? So if you're directly initializing the app with the configuration, it will initialize every time a new application. We don't want that. So get apps dot length, we'll get that length. If the length is greater than 0, that means there is we have an app. So then get that app information. If that is not, then initialize the app with the Firebase config, which I have in my hand. All right, so then we need to export this to we need to export it from here, then only we can use it from inside our any components. So before exporting it, I'm going to export the storage as well. Storage is equals get storage using this app. Okay, then export, we're going to export the app and as well as the storage. Save the changes. Now we exported it successfully, but what we need to do, we need to replace all these things inside an environment variable. So let's go ahead and create an environment variable inside your root folder, that means your client folder. So right click your client folder and create a new file and name that file as .env. So now inside the root folder, we need to create the variables for each and every keys over here. So let me show you how to create a variable. So here This is how you need to create a variable for each and everything. Like React app, you should prefix everything with React underscore app, and then you can give your key name over here. So we have Firebase API key and auth domain and the project ID and Firebase storage bucket, messaging ID and the Firebase app ID. So let me copy this completely, create it exactly the same way, then put it inside over here. Now all you have to do is to copy and replace these keys one by one. Copy and paste it inside the double quotes, and then copy this from here, auth domain, put it exactly to the auth domain, then project ID, copy it and put it in the project ID, don't miss the double quotes, and put the storage bucket exactly to your storage bucket variable, and then copy the messaging ID, paste it over here. So this is to avoid push all these keys publicly to your GitHub account. So we should avoid this. Okay, so that's why we are putting all this in the environment variable, and inside the git ignore file we will ignore this environment variable to avoid uploading it. All right, so then what we need to do, we have to replace everything. So hold your Alt key or options key in your Mac and create the multi-cursor editor and select everything to the right side, delete it, and then just add process.env dot, here we need to bring that variable, add comma over here so it will not show any error. So let's bring one by one key from here, Firebase key, copy and put it to your Firebase key, and then copy this, put it for your auth domain, project ID, put it in your project ID, storage bucket, for storage bucket, Firebase messaging ID, all right. So then let's go here for, where is that? Okay, for the environment and Firebase app ID, and put it for your Firebase app ID. Fine. So now what we need to do, we need to add this env file inside the git ignore. We need to ignore that file. So open your git ignore file and then open this git ignore, and here we need to ignore that file. Basically we need to ignore the .env. So from the root of the directory we have this .env file. Okay, so this is the file that it need to be ignored. All right, so now we are totally fine and everything is clear. So this will ignore that particular file and everything, and you can see at the end, you can see if you are creating env.local or development local, test local, production local, there are different types of environment variables that you can create. We created as an env, so we added that in the git ignore file and save the changes. Now this file will be ignored if you are uploading all these things to your GitHub when you are committed and pushing it to the GitHub. Let me close this and let me close this environment. And now we need to restart our client, because the reason the local environment file should load successfully. Clear? And yarn start. So this will reload that environment file. All right. So now we have this Firebase configuration successfully configured with our front end. Now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and perform all the actions what we need to do with this the sign in or sign up with Google. We need to perform everything one by one. So that's what we're going to do next.